She said yes, but now everything is falling apart. Belly's engagement to Jeremiah was supposed to be the start of something new, something beautiful, but instead, it's only exposed the cracks in their relationship, the silence between them, and the love that refuses to die. In the Summer I Turned Pretty, Season 3, Episode 4, the honeymoon phase is over. The questions Belly tried to bury are rising fast. And at the center of it all is one impossible truth. You can't plan a future if your heart is still living in the past. Belly and Jeremiah return from the chaos of the dinner table announcement with forced smiles and tired eyes. They're engaged, but are they happy? The trailer for Episode 4 hints that both of them are struggling to keep the fantasy alive. Jeremiah wants to believe this is real, that Belly chose him fully. But there's a moment, just a breath, where his eyes flicker with doubt. He remembers how fast she said yes, how it came right after a fight, right after yet another moment when she felt like she was losing control. And maybe that's what this engagement really is, her last attempt to take back control of her life. Meanwhile, Belly's voice in the trailer echoes with uncertainty. She says she wants to move forward, to build something. But the way she clutches her engagement ring like it's a question mark, not a promise, tells us everything. Laurel is more than skeptical, she's furious. But not in the shouting, dramatic way. No, her fury is quieter, sharper. She believes Belly is making a mistake, and she's determined not to watch her daughter destroy her future out of fear and confusion. She confronts Jeremiah in a moment that feels colder than anything we've seen from her before. She asks him if he truly understands what love means, if he's ready to carry Belly through everything, not just the good moments. Jeremiah tries to respond, but even he knows this isn't just about the wedding anymore. It's about the foundation of everything they've built, and whether it can actually survive reality. Steven is stuck in the middle. He wants to support Belly, but deep down he knows this is spiraling. He sees her rehearsing answers instead of speaking from her heart. He watches Jeremiah start to back away when things get too serious. And Taylor, always the emotional mirror of the group, begins to question whether they're all just pretending this is going to work. The old magic of cousin speech is gone, and what's left is tension, unease, and a feeling that something big is about to break. But the one person who doesn't speak out loud is Conrad. He doesn't have to. His silence in the trailer says more than words ever could. He's keeping his distance, respecting Belly's choices, but his eyes follow her. Every move, every moment she hesitates, every time she forces a smile, it hurts him, and it shows. Laurel knows it too. That's why, at the end of the trailer, we hear her voice not to Jeremiah, not even to Belly, but to Conrad. She asks him if he's really going to let her go without a fight. And in that single question, everything changes. Because the truth is, Episode 4 isn't about a wedding. It's about love that refuses to be silenced. It's about decisions that haunt you and feelings that don't fade just because you want them to. Belly is starting to realize she's caught in a lie she's told herself. And as the episode unfolds, that lie is starting to crumble. Slowly, painfully, completely. The pressure is mounting. And in Episode 4, Belly begins to crack under the weight of it all. The engagement ring on her finger feels heavier with every passing day, not because of its size, but because of what it represents. Commitment, forever, and a decision she might not be ready for. She starts avoiding conversations about wedding dates, about plans, about anything that makes this engagement real. Jeremiah notices, of course. At first he brushes it off, telling himself she's just overwhelmed. But deep down, a quiet panic begins to grow in him. He's been here before with Belly drifting away while Conrad stays in her orbit like gravity. He wants to believe this time is different, that she's chosen him completely. But the signs are impossible to ignore. She flinches when he touches her sometimes. She avoids looking him in the eye when talking about the future. And the worst part, she doesn't even realize she's doing it. Meanwhile, Conrad is doing everything he can to stay silent. He promised himself he wouldn't interfere. He told himself if she's happy, that's all that matters. But the more he watches, the more he knows this isn't happiness. This is Belly trying to prove something to Laurel, to herself, to everyone, and Conrad can't stand it. He's holding back so much, every word, every emotion, but you can see it building behind his eyes. And when Laurel finally corners him again, she tells him something that hits him like a punch. You can't keep letting her walk away just to say you were being noble. It's brutal, but it's true. Because if Belly doesn't know how, he feels she can't make a real choice. And maybe that's what scares Conrad the most, that she will know and still choose someone else. Belly starts having flashbacks, teeny memories of all the promises she once made to Conrad. of late-night conversations, of looks that said everything words couldn't. She tries to push them away, but they keep coming. A song on the radio, a shirt he left behind at the house, the smell of the beach at night. Everything reminds her of him, and it's driving her insane. She wants to be all in with Jeremiah. She wants to be certain, but her heart won't let her. And when she finally tries to talk to Jeremiah about her doubts, he gets quiet. Too quiet, because he knows too. He's known from the start that no matter how hard he tries, part of her is still somewhere else. Stephen, watching all of this unfold, becomes the unexpected voice of reason. He talks to Belly in one of the most emotionally raw scenes yet, telling her that marrying someone to escape your past isn't the same as choosing your future. He doesn't push her toward Conrad or Jeremiah. He just wants her to stop lying to herself. To be honest, for once, and that hits Belly hard. Because Stephen has always been her constant, the one who never judged, who always had her back. And hearing him question this engagement makes it all too real. She's running out of time and excuses it as the episode nears its final moments. There's a subtle shift. Belly finds herself alone in the dock, or maybe outside the house, somewhere that used to bring her peace. But now, even the ocean feels uncertain. She clutches her phone, tempted to call Jeremiah, or maybe Conrad, but she doesn't. Instead, she just sits there, eyes full of questions. And we're left wondering, is she finally ready to stop pretending? Or is she about to step into a life she already knows doesn't fit? Episode 4 promises to be the turning point. Because sometimes, the hardest truth isn't who you love. It's who you're trying not to. The calm before the storm doesn't last long. In episode 4, the tension that's been simmering under the surface finally begins to explode slowly, quietly, but unmistakably. Everything feels off, like the world around Belly is slightly tilted. Conversations are clipped, smiles are forced, and the silence between people who used to understand each other so well is louder than ever. At this point, it's not just about Belly and Jeremiah anymore, it's about what this engagement is doing to everyone around them. Cousins Beach was always a place of joy and memories, but now it's turning into a battleground for emotions no one is ready to face. Taylor tries to keep the peace, but even she can't ignore how wrong everything feels. Her advice becomes more cautious, her encouragement more hesitant. She sees what Belly is pretending not to see, that love shouldn't feel like pressure or panic. It should feel like home. And right now, Belly looks like she's lost. Meanwhile, Jeremiah begins to change. He starts acting out, not in anger, but in desperation. He organizes little things, dates, surprises, spontaneous getaways, trying to bring back the spark, trying to remind Belly why she said yes. But every time she flinches, or forces a smile, or pulls away just a little too soon, he feels it like a cut, and each cut makes him try harder. Until finally, it becomes obvious that he's not fighting for lovies, fighting against the shadow of Conrad, a shadow that never left, no matter how hard they tried to pretend. Jeremiah has always feared that Belly's heart belonged to someone else, and now that fear is starting to become unbearable. There's a scene where he looks at her, truly looks at her, and you can see it in his face. He knows, and it's breaking him. Conrad, on the other hand, remains quiet, but not passive. He starts writing again letters he'll never send, thoughts he'll never speak. His way of surviving the heartbreak is to put it down on paper, trying to make sense of how everything slipped away. But in those words, there's a deep kind of love. The kind that doesn't scream or demand. The kind that waits. Still, even with all the restraint he's shown, there is a moment coming, one that the trailer hints at, where he won't be able to stay silent anymore. A confrontation is brewing, not because he wants to take Belly back, but because he can't let her ruin her life out of guilt, or fear, or confusion. And maybe, just maybe, he's finally ready to say what he should have said a long time ago. Laurel, meanwhile, remains the quiet force of truth in the background. She's seen all of this before. Young love rushed by emotion, promises made in the heat of the moment, hearts broken by silence. She's trying to guide Belly without forcing her, but it's hard. Every time she sees her daughter struggling to smile, every time she watches her avoid eye contact or change the subject when the wedding is mentioned, Laurel's heart breaks a little more, because she knows Belly isn't built for a life of pretending. She's too honest, too open, too vulnerable, and this isn't her. Laurel has a quiet scene where she talks to Belly. No arguments, no harsh words, just a simple truth. Love doesn't need to be rushed if it's real. It waits, and those words linger with Belly long after. But the biggest shift of all comes in the form of a letter. Not from Jeremiah, not from Conrad, but from Susannah. It's something Belly finds by accidental letter she never knew existed, hidden among old papers. In it, Susannah writes about love, about choices, and about how sometimes the heart knows the truth before the mind is ready to accept it. It's not a letter filled with advice or instructions, it's just one woman's honest thoughts about what it means to truly follow your heart. And as Belly reads it, something inside her starts to change. Slowly, painfully, but undeniably. Because Susannah always saw what others couldn't. And maybe she saw this too. Long before any of them were ready to admit it. Asterisk by the time episode 4 reaches its middle point. The emotional weight becomes impossible to ignore. Belly begins to feel like she's standing on the edge of something massive. Something irreversible. Every conversation now feels like a test, every look from her mom. Every hesitant word from Stephen. Every silent glance from Conrad. Even Jeremiah's constant efforts to act like everything is okay begin to feel more like avoidance than love. And for Belly, the realization hits hard. She's surrounded by people who care deeply about her. But not a single one of them believes she's making the right decision. Not fully. And the louder her heart starts to beat, the more unbearable that silence becomes. She can't sleep, she can't eat, and when she looks at herself in the mirror, she doesn't see a bride-to-be. She sees a girl who made a choice to fast too recklessly and now doesn't know how to unmake it. And that's when the guilt kicks in. Not just for Jeremiah, who keeps smiling even when he's clearly hurting, but for Conrad too. Belly remembers everything. His quiet love, his constant distance, the way he never made her feel pressured but always made her feel seen. And it's that memory of feeling understood without saying a word that begins to haunt her the most. Because with Jeremiah, everything is said out loud. Everything is bright and public and urgent. But with Conrad, it was always the quiet that spoke the loudest. The small gestures, the looks across the room, the way he just knew. And now, in his silence, she sees more love than she ever did in all the promises Jeremiah made. But she can't say that out loud. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Meanwhile, Conrad begins to change. He's no longer content to just sit on the sidelines. When Belly accidentally runs into him one afternoon, brief, unexpected, and unplanned, it's different this time. He doesn't avoid her eyes, he doesn't walk away. And Belly, for the first time in what feels like forever, doesn't either. They talk not about the engagement, not about the wedding, but about everything else. About life, about Susannah, about how Cousins feels different now. It's a real conversation, raw and honest. And when it ends, Belly can barely breathe. Because in those few minutes, she felt more grounded than she has in weeks. And it terrifies her. Because it shouldn't feel like that. Not when she's promised to someone else. Jeremiah senses the shift, even without knowing the details. He starts pulling away, not out of anger, but out of fear. He begins asking questions he doesn't want answers to. He wonders aloud if they're rushing, if they should wait. Belly, caught off guard, agrees too quickly. And just like that, cracks begin to form in their picture-perfect moment. The engagement, once a symbol of something new, now feels like a wall between them. Something built too fast, without checking if the foundation could hold. And Jeremiah, for all his charm and warmth, begins to look more and more like someone trying to keep something alive that was never truly his. Stephen and Taylor watch from the sidelines, helpless. Taylor finally breaks and confronts Belly. She tells her what everyone's been too scared to say, that maybe the reason Belly's so anxious all the time is because deep down, she knows she's not being honest with herself. Belly doesn't deny it, she can't. Because Taylor's words cut through the fog. She tells her that love is not just about choosing someone who loves you back. It's about choosing the one you can't live without. And suddenly, all the noise falls away. Because Belly knows exactly who that person is. And it terrifies her. The pressure reaches its peak when Laurel, tired of watching her daughter spiral, finally sits her down and says something Belly never expected. You don't have to marry anyone right now. But if you're going to hurt someone, don't let it be yourself. It's the kind of truth Belly has been running from. She's been so afraid to disappoint everyone, Jeremiah, mother, even herself, that she forgot what it felt like to just breathe, to be honest, to feel something without trying to control it. And in that moment, she doesn't cry. She just sits still, letting the weight of it all sink in. Because the truth is finally surfacing. She's been running from it since the moment she said yes, and now it's staring her straight in the face. What if love isn't about choosing the one who's there? What if it's about choosing the one you've never been able to let go of? Everything comes to a head in the final stretch of episode 4. The emotions that have been simmering, guilt, longing, confusion, finally begin to boil over. Belly is no longer the same girl who rushed into an engagement to quiet the chaos in her heart. Now, she's standing in the eye of the storm, forced to confront everything she's been running from. The final scenes of the episode build slowly, painfully, like the tightening of a knot you know is about to snap. The conversations shift. No more pretending, no more small talk. Belly starts asking the questions she's avoided for too long. Why did she really say yes? Is Jeremiah the person she wants, or just the one she feels safe with? And most terrifying of all, if Conrad looked her in the eye right now and said he still loved her, what would she do? The episode doesn't hand us easy answers because The Summer I Turned Pretty has never been about simple choices. It's about love that lingers, the kind that doesn't fade with time or distance. And in episode 4, we see that love on full display, not through grand gestures, but in the quiet moments, the way Conrad watches Belly as she walks past, the way she pauses when she hears his voice behind her, the way Jeremiah forces a smile, even as his eyes fill with doubt. These aren't just characters anymore. They're real people, tangled in a web of feelings that can't be solved with one decision. And for Belly, the weight of that reality becomes too heavy to ignore. At the heart of the episode is one powerful truth. Love isn't a trophy to be won or a promise to be rushed. It's something you grow into. And Belly, for all her efforts to move forward, is still caught between two versions of herself. The one who wants safety, and the one who craves something deeper, even if it hurts. The moment that breaks everything comes late in the episode. When Belly finds herself alone with Conrad again, not planned, not dramatic, just inevitable. And this time, he speaks. Slowly, carefully, he tells her the truth, that he never stopped loving her, that watching her get engaged was the hardest thing he's ever done, that he understands why she chose Jeremiah, but that doesn't mean he's letting go. And just like that, Belly's world shifts again. She doesn't cry, she doesn't run, she just stands there, stunned. Because in her heart, she knew. She always knew. But hearing it out loud makes everything so much more real. And the worst part, she doesn't know what to say. Jeremiah, unaware of this conversation, is preparing something special, a quiet moment to reconnect, to remind her why they said yes. And that's the tragedy of it all. Because even though Jeremiah is trying with everything he has, he's fighting a ghost of love story that never ended, just paused. The episode ends not with a dramatic cliffhanger, but with a moment of unbearable stillness. Belly is sitting alone again, this time with her engagement ring off. It's resting beside her, silent and cold. Her eyes are distant, locked on the horizon. And for the first time, she's not trying to choose between two boys. She's trying to choose herself. To stop being the girl everyone expects her to be. And to finally listen to her own heart, no matter how much it hurts. Because the question is no longer who she will choose, but whether she's ready to stop running and face the truth she's buried for far too long. Episode 4 doesn't just move the story forward, it tears it open. It dares the audience to feel every ounce of pain, hope, and love these characters are drowning in, and it leaves us on the edge, breathless, waiting to see whether Belly will finally follow her heart or continue down a path that was never really hers to begin with.